Hey everybody, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about one of my favorite food plot plantings here in the northern part of the country, cereal rye. Now, I've heard it called cereal rye, winter rye, rye grain. I've even heard it called farmer's rye. We're talking about that annual large seed planting. We're not talking about the ryegrass that you could seed your lawn with. We're not talking about that. That's not a good food plot seed up here. So, if you're in the northern half of the country, that you do get some cold winters, honestly, I think you should not have a food plot without some cereal rye in it. And it maybe not so much for your fall attraction, but right now here in Michigan, I'm looking at probably about 1.5 feet of snow on the ground. Yeah, we're starting to get some warm days. But one of the first things to green up in the spring is rye. And I've seen reports with protein content on greening rye anywhere from 11 to 15%. When you think about the most critical time of the year for a whitetail is right now in most part of the country, the northern half of the country. Does are getting ready to have fawns soon, and bucks are trying to grow their antlers for 2023. Right now is a great time to get some protein in those bodies. So when I say it's a great deer food, here we actually see in our backyard food plot the cereal rye portions of the food plot hit on 3 different occasions. Obviously, when we plant it here early to mid-August, maybe August 20th, we'll see that attraction late August, early September on that lush green rye. And then we seem to see them get on the brassicas throughout the fall, brassicas, radishes, oats. If we have any broadleaf like peas or beans in there, they'll get on that. And they really attack that rye again right in that period between Thanksgiving and Christmas. If we've got snow on the ground, I've seen them paw through 1.5 feet of snow to get to green rye. But then, like I was just talking about, the biggest one, the most important one, is food in the spring right now. Well, not so much here, but I'm seeing so much on social media, folks in, just south of us, the states south of us, greening up right now, cereal rye, green up on their food plots, full of deer. And that's what we like to see. Again, 13% protein, depending on what report you watch. Right now is a wonderful thing for deer. So like I said before, if I was in any part of the northern half of the country, I would absolutely have rye in my food plot program. So other than just great deer food, when we did a video on soil organic matter a few weeks back, rye is probably one of the biggest pushers of this number that I have found. If you think about in my food plot program here, we put rye in the ground probably mid-August, and we may terminate it in June in preparation for our brassica plantings. That's 10 months in the ground. That's a heck of a root system it's building. Okay, and so many people want to concentrate what's above the ground. You think about that root system of cereal rye that's been in the ground for 10 months. That's a pretty good root system, and it's going to really start to make a difference on this number. Also, residue. If you're into no-till and you need some residue, some crop residue, dry matter on top of the ground, cereal rye, once spring green up hits and the deer start to leave it alone, it just explodes with growth. Which leads me into number 3 point. I had a gentleman talk to me this morning. Sorry, but I'll refer to our home state of Michigan again. He was talking to me about his sandy soil, and he was wondering about the 3-strip system we really like, or should we just do a 2-strip system? And we were talking about his options of cereal grains, and he had used a lot of winter wheat and a lot of cereal rye in the past. And I said, okay, we really want to move this number. Let's get rid of the winter wheat for a few years, and let's just go oats and cereal rye. We'll go heavier on the cereal rye, maybe like 60-40, 70-30, heavier on the cereal rye. And one of the questions he had for me, which actually got me thinking about this video, how tall should I let it get? And I said, you should let it get as tall as you're comfortable with what equipment you have. And what I mean by that is, do you have a riding lawnmower to terminate it? Do you have just a sprayer and a roller? Do you have a brush hog? Do you just have hand equipment like a weed eater? I said, I would let it get as tall as you can to where you're not comfortable working with whatever equipment you have. So we have a brush mower behind a tractor, so I let the rye go as tall as I can to about early to mid-June, and I mow it. Now, one of the things that I really like about cereal rye in these bigger food plots is that 4 to 5, maybe 6 foot tall rye. It's a problem to deal with sometimes if you don't have the right equipment, but it's a great spot for fawns to live and hide. And one of the things we do when we're mowing our cereal rye is we'll send a four-wheeler out ahead, or even people walking, to knock fawns out of the way. And we usually are mowing anywhere from a half acre to 1 acre food plot. It's clockwork every year. We bump 2 to 3 fawns out of this rye. So if you're going to mow it and it's really tall, make sure you're watching out for fawns. Spraying, if you're going to do, say like the buckwheat method, and you need to terminate that rye to get your buckwheat in, spraying it usually is about a foot, foot and a half tall. We usually would like to spray or recommend people spraying, 2 weeks before we're going to get into that buckwheat thing, that buckwheat method. So spraying is another good way of terminating it. It dies real easy with Roundup. If you've got some sort of a broadleaf in there you want to protect, clethodim will kill it too. Disking. Now, if you're going to just disc it, now depending on what kind of disc you have, ATV disc or a tractor disc, weight is going to have a big bearing on how tall it can get. If I was just running a four-wheeler ATV type disc, maybe 16 to 18 inches tops. Again, it's also going to depend on how thick it is. I've seen people try to plant 300 pounds an acre. I don't think you're going to get the regeneration the following spring because it's so heavy and so thick. But if you stick around to that 100 pounds an acre, it's not uncommon to get 6 foot tall rye. So when you're thinking about when you should terminate it, I would like to let it go. Me personally, I let it go as far and as tall as I can until it's time to mow with our brush hog. That way I'm really doing a good job of bumping this number up. Planting it. Man, I've heard and I've seen it myself, rye will grow in the back of a pickup truck. It seems that you can spill rye in a gravel driveway. And that's true, I've seen it. But the biggest thing is it's like anything, folks, you gotta have rain. So when I plant our rye, I really like to see that seed in the ground. We'll do a light disking. And again, I know this no-till regenerative egg thing is a big thing right now, and there's so many people that are dead set against tilling, and I understand, I understand that, but again, you have to think about stuff. We've been in a drought here for 3 years now. We've just been in this weather pattern to where the rain seems to shut off at the 4th of July and not start back up till the end of September. Folks, I want a green food plot to hunt over. And if it comes down to scratching the soil to put that rye in the ground or just throwing it on top of the ground and just watching it do nothing, I'm covering that seed. I'm covering that seed every time, okay? You can broadcast it and, you can spray and broadcast it. You can broadcast it right before rain. But again, if that seed's sitting on top of the ground, you got to have multiple rains, especially if you're in a sandy soil condition. I have done the rye overseed with success, really good soil, and I got plenty of rain. So just kind of think about, it's kind of on a yearly basis. Like I said, we've been in a weather pattern now here for 3 years where we just haven't had any rain. It seems like after the 4th of July. But compare that to 2 years before that, I think it was like 2018, we're waiting for the food plots to dry up to go plant. So you looked at no-till as a really good option. So, just because rye will grow in the back of a pickup truck, you got to take in consideration your situation, your weather pattern, your soil type, what kind of equipment you have. One of the things I've done quite a few times, we have a food plot right across the street, and it literally looks like a pumpkin patch it's not rock, it's boulders. It's impossible to do any kind of tillage, so we're forced to do no-till over there, which is fine. I like to mess around with it. But anyway, one of the things I'll do over there, because the soil is so bad, rye is about the only thing we can get to grow. But once we get rye to grow, I let it go all summer long. I let it go to seed. And then I take one of those woven harrow drags in there, and I throw probably 50 to 80 pounds per acre down, and then we just drag it and drag it and drag it, and even knock the rye seed off. And then we really hope for rain. You know, if we get 3 or 4 decent rains in the course of 2 weeks, it's going to do quite well. But again, there's some people that's all their food plot is they let the rye grow up, let it go to seed, and they just knock it down, and that's the cycle they have. And there's nothing wrong with that. But like I said, we need some rain for that. So my favorite planting here in Michigan, cereal rye. If I could only do one, it would be rye. So I hope that answers any questions you had. If you're thinking about rye, by all means get it in there, because you know right now the deer need it most, and cereal rye is going to come to the rescue, because soybeans are still on the shelf, clovers aren't waking up yet, obviously brassicas are not in the ground yet, corn is still on the shelf. You know, and if I had a hunting farm anywhere, I would, you know, where you guys can do beans and corn, I would absolutely be dropping cereal rye on my beans in the fall. Just not so much for fall hunting, but the food availability to the deer right now. So something to think about, folks, with your food plot programs. You got any questions, message us. We're answering phone calls, text messages, emails, private messages. Like I said, as long as I'm awake, we're going to respond. So thanks for watching. Hope you all learned something, and we'll see you in a few days.